Hey, City Life Church, we're so glad that you're joining us for another Fifth Saturday conversation. We're super excited to have our very own Cameron and Jennifer Muro with us to talk about marriage. Of course, myself, Pastor Fred, Pastor Vanessa. If you're new to City Life Church, we just want to say welcome. And we're glad that you're watching with us. This is part of a bigger series that we do on the fifth Saturday of each month. Instead of gathering for a corporate worship service, we do outreach in the community. And then for our online experience, we do an interview format, picking topics that we feel like are important to us as a church and should be important to you. And so tonight we're going to be talking about marriage. So thanks for being here, being a part. You all have been coming to City Life Church for how long? Maybe we should start there.
Yeah.
October of 2011, so just over 14 years.
Okay, wow. 14 years.
Yep.
How long married?
Yeah.
We've been married for 15 years.
Yeah, we were
almost 16
newly-ish
years.
weds when we started coming here.
So when you started coming, did you have Jerry when you started coming, right? Because she's not, 15,
Yep. So we didn't have any
13.
kids.
No kids.
Little responsibility.
Yeah.
You were kind of newlyweds still.
We were.
I don't remember that. I mean, I remember meeting you guys, but I didn't realize you had just been married that short.
We had been married for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Thought we had it all figured out.
Well, Fred and I do have it figured out.
Yeah, of course.
We've been married, it'll be 29 years in May. So we got married when we were 15.
Stop.
So, because we're young.
You're only 40.
So almost 29 years of marriage, and then we've raised 3 kids.
Yep.
So
You guys are in it, raising 3. So.
We are in it. We are in it.
So we're going to try to cover 4 topics that we feel are important to marriage. These are the 4 topics that we cover when we're doing premarital counseling. So this will be a high level, kind of introducing these concepts to the church and to people that are watching. And so the first one is what we feel like is one of the biggest contributors to marriage failing, and then also obviously the converse of that is that it's also one of the biggest contributors to marriages thriving if you get it right. And that's the idea, is that people are not psychologically, emotionally, and practically prepared for how displacing marriage is. Right? So we grow up with this storybook view of marriage. We only know oftentimes what we see in media, and so marriage is this glamorous. It makes everything else in your world perfect, right?
Yep.
And so, and what marriage actually does in the onset is that it displaces every other relationship in your life.
Right.
And people are not emotionally prepared for that because every other relationship that is new in people's lives up until that point when they're married is integrated into their life through what I would call assimilation, meaning that I have all of these established relationships, these new relationships come in, things get reshuffled, but it's like a reharmonization. And none of those relationships typically displace your family of origin. So your loyalty to your parents oftentimes is intact. Your loyalty to your siblings is intact. When you get married, you can't integrate by way of assimilation. All of those other relationships should get reprioritized. They should drop down a level. And then my spouse now is the most important person in my life next to my relationship with God. And I don't think people talk about that enough. And I don't think people are prepared for that. And I would go as far to say, I'm not sure that everybody wants that.
I would agree.
I think a lot of times people want the promise of marriage, but then they want all these other relationships to stay intact. And then those two things are constantly competing. So simply just say, do you think that's true, right? Because part of today is you all have the freedom to say, I'm not sure I agree with that. So tell me, do you think that's true? And then how have you seen it? And maybe how have you experienced that in your own life?
I agree. I think it's true. I think one of the other drivers is that do we have examples of parents in our lives that are willing to say to their children,
So good.
you know, you probably shouldn't pick up the phone and call me every detail of every fight
Yeah.
that you have with your new husband.
Yeah.
Parents
Or-
willing to be displaced.
Right.
Or supportive
Parents
of that
are
process.
that get on board with that and then have the discipline and the, you know, the wisdom to say that to their children. I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah. No, I couldn't help but think as you were talking, Fred, it's more than just the relational displacement. It is the personal preference displacement, right? And the two are interconnected because for many people it is, you know, the deprioritization of friends or family that have once held, you know, that top spot. But then it's also, so many people have they come into marriage with all of their desires and their habits, the things that they want to do. You know, I'm an avid golfer and I play golf every weekend and it's what I do. And so I want to play golf every weekend and I expect you just to accept me playing golf every weekend.
Yeah.
Like, this is who I am.
Right, this is who I am. And marriage supersedes that, right?
Yeah.
It is that commitment to your spouse. And so the hard part is so fine. I maybe relationships aren't as important to me, so I easily deprioritize my family or whatever else. But I'm still going to stick to
That's really good,
my
Cam.
hobbies and my passions and my pursuits. And then the reality is when that creates conflict in my marriage, then I'm looking at my friends and other people to validate and to rationalize.
Yeah.
Well, you know, she knew I played golf when we got married.
Right.
Why is it all of a sudden a problem now? And then it brings it right back in because now you're not going to your spouse, you're going back to those displaced relationships.
Let's come up with a little bit of a list. If someone were to come to us and they're getting ready to get married and they would say, give me your top 3 to 5 things that are going to get reshuffled. Or they would say, give me the top 3 to 5 things in my life that are about ready to get shuffled. So we've given 2. So we gave relationships, hobbies and interests. I'm thinking of a third big one. Would be your vocation. Right? And so that's a big one. People, I've established my career. Now I'm married. You know, I have to be willing to say, what if this career pursuit is not conducive for whatever reason for this marriage relationship? Am I willing to pivot in my career in order for my marriage to be healthy? So
I don't have a word for this one, but it's like
make something up.
Like underlying life assumptions. Like,
okay, that's
this
good.
is how I spend Christmas. I've always done it this way. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's
like
good.
Things that aren't always even stated, I think sometimes when you're dating, that come up after and you realize this has to be able to be reshuffled, reprioritized. All of this is open-handed. I didn't even realize my hands were closed. I didn't even realize it was in my hand. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden you have to be willing to let God reprioritize that sometimes. I like to use the analogy when we're talking to young couples about kind of like the picture of a table. And on that table are my priorities, my passions, my dreams. Many of these God-breathed, God-given relationships for sure, family, friends, those choices. And then the person that you're dating, the person that you're thinking about spending your life with has the same. And then together, this reprioritization, this assimilation is taking everything off the table and then together saying, God, what goes back on the table and then in what order? Some things are going to go back on. They're just going to be in a different place. Some things don't go back on. But then I also believe that God puts new things on the table that you weren't even reaching for, that weren't even in your heart because of this, covenant commitment of marriage. So that's a process. That doesn't happen overnight. That's ongoing, I think, but really intense in the first couple years you're married.
And we talk about it with married couples because they're not emotionally prepared. Sometimes they're feeling it and they don't even know what's happening. They get married and they're expecting everything to be amazing. And then all of a sudden there's tension, there's conflict, and they can't quite figure out why it is. And so we feel like having that conversation on the front end, it prepares them. Oh, this is what I'm experiencing. This relationship is getting reshuffled. There's a reprioritization.
It's uncomfortable when something that's been a priority that you've chosen feels like it's competing.
Or it's been your whole life.
Yes,
like
I remember that.
Siblings or parents.
We dated for 9 years before we got married. So all of these types of things, we were like, we're ready. Like we've known each other forever. He knows my life and I know his. And I'll never forget our first married Christmas together. I come up from a huge family. We like do the tour of the 7 cities on Christmas Day. Like you've known that for 9 years. And so our first Christmas together, he ate it. And I remember about the 3rd stop, he just looked tired. Because even in those 9 years, we had never spent all of Christmas Day together.
Yeah.
And so that was eye-opening for me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, I just expected that this is what we would do. And so we had to sit down and figure that out and say, you know, how do we prioritize us and still see families?
We tell couples just elope and move to like some remote island. Off the coast of you know somewhere, and then it'll be
That's
easy.
it.
Oh, let me one more came in my mind. This because I think this is a hard one for people. If you come into marriage as a blended family, I would say if I had to pick the reprioritization, that's the hardest emotionally. Is that you come into the marriage with a child. It's hard for you psychologically to say this spouse is now more important to me than this child. Now, people might say, why do you have to pick, right? Why do I have to say this one is more important? And we would argue that if you don't approach it that way in your mind and in your heart, then your life is never going to experience the flow is not really the right word. You're not going to experience life the way that God intended. You're always going to be swimming upstream just a little bit. And I would say there's room in your heart to have many people that are of the highest priority, but your spouse has to be the highest of all of them, if that makes sense.
Right.
Well, I mean, I think the gift of marriage, right? The scripture says to become one, and it's not just a metaphor for
that's good
joining the last name. It is a journey to oneness together, and a marriage is going to be its best when the couple are most like one. And so to your point, when you're not putting your spouse above all of those things, it plants seeds of doubt in your spouse of am I really the one? And you know, or okay, well that was just one time, but is this a thing that he or she values more than me? And that's never healthy in the relationship because you're now lacking that full trust and faith in the goal and purpose of your spouse.
No, that's good. All right, let's pivot to the next one. We like to tell couples that make sure you win every argument that you get into with your spouse, right? Isn't that how you do it?
That's a good way to sleep separate.
We say at City Life Church there's winners and losers, and that's also true in your home.
marriage.
Somebody's got to lose this argument.
That's
obviously I say that in jest, right?
Look, I got the key to the launch codes around my neck. I can.
No, right. What we say to couples is if your marriage is going to be emotionally healthy, then feeling a sense of emotional connection to your spouse has got to be more important to you than winning an argument. You can make winning the argument the higher priority. But you will always lose. If that's your goal. And so when you are in a argument, discussion, conflict, and you're in a heightened emotional state, everything inside of us, right? The Adam and the Eve inside of us wants to win, wants to be right, and that comes at a great cost in marriages because month after month after month, year after year after year, you've created now a dynamic in your relationship that's really, really broken. And so we say to couples, it's not about being right. It might start that way for all of us because human nature is flawed in us, but at some point your character has to kick in and you have to say to yourself, I love this person more than I love my point of view. So talk about that. How have you come to discover that in your marriage?
I think the heart behind it matters because, if you go into it ready to win, you're either going to end up in a huge blow up, or you're just going to cave and compromise in every argument. And that creates the opposite effect. You have years and years of someone who
that's really
just
good.
Shuts down, never feels like it matters to say how they're feeling or what they need. And so the heart of it is, I love this person more than this topic.
Yeah.
I love this. I love Cameron more than making my point, be most important.
Sure.
And saying in an argument, I really care for you. I want to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, it's conflict resolution 101, right? It's you have to do you want to be right? Do you want to win, or do you value the person greater than winning? And so the hard part is that's a reflexive muscle, right? And especially when you get married when you're young, and we were young, and we thought early on that the best way to fight was to just lay it all bare and just to have it out and tear each other down. And I mean, I remember family saying to us like, yeah, even when we were dating like that, y'all sure about this? And we like in our
meaning like when they found out you were going to get married.
We never just go like to bed questioning how we feel about each other.
The way that we fought, like we
just laid it all out there.
And we were just so confident that we were like, yeah, absolutely, because at the end of the day, we both like there's no assumption or presumption about what we mean. What we mean, but that was foolish because we were young, and you realize the older you get, that the damage that you do, tearing your spouse down every single time that you have a disagreement. Yeah. And so the hard part is you really don't know how to do that when you're young. And when I'm saying young, like even into your 20s, like it's not even young in age, it can be young in relationship.
Right. There's just no safety in that.
Right. And so it's really learning how to fight fair. Yeah. Right. And fight is maybe the wrong word, but it's being able to communicate fairly and learning the tips and tricks. Like maybe if you feel your blood pressure rise, and it's calling time out and walking away from it and saying, you know what, I'm not willing to risk the health of the relationship because it's more important. Yeah. And I'm going to come back to this. Hey, I hear what you have to say. I need a minute to process what you just said. Yeah. And then you come back in an hour or whatever, and you have that conversation.
Or a day or a week.
Or a day, it could be. I joke, right?
I think there's wisdom. I was going to say, I think there's wisdom in stating that because we're both pretty passionate people.
Absolutely.
So I need a whole lot more than a minute to come back. You know what I mean? Right. So yeah.
Right,
you
but
never
that's
need
also
more than a
recognizing
minute.
you can't call time out and not come back to it.
You have to come back.
You have to come back.
I think to your point too. I think committing to the principle in moments of non-conflict, like way ahead of time, right? Yeah. I'm committed to this principle of reconciliation. I'm committed that no matter where this journey of getting to reconciliation, that we're going to get there, and that's where we're going to plant and move forward. Yeah, is helpful.
Well, then that's a goal. Like you can both run for that.
So even in the heat of because. In our discussions, certainly we don't always get to the resolution within an hour or before bed or, and so even when I am like at my most emotionally elevated, no one can make me angrier than Fred Michaud moment, I know the end goal, no matter how heightened, you know what I mean? Sure. I know I have to get there, and knowing that I've committed to that in my heart and I've committed to that with him, that it helps. It helps me at least.
We joke with couples, if you feel like you're getting ready to get into an argument, you should both strip down naked.
Yep.
Because your argument will be a lot shorter.
Yes, it will.
That way.
How much does it really matter?
How much does it really matter?
Let's go.
That's right. That's right.
No, I like what you all are saying, because if we're not careful, we'll make the absence of conflict the goal.
Correct.
And that's not the goal.
That's not the goal.
The goal is emotional intimacy.
Right.
Because if what you all have all said, if the absence of conflict is my goal, then I'm just going to stuff all this unresolved conflict down deep inside, and we all know that's not going to end well, right?
The absence of conflict is not safety. That's not the same as safety.
Yeah. So we want couples to experience. Goes back to what you said. This idea of oneness isn't just poetic language. It's it's what the promise of marriage is. Right. And you have to work really hard to protect that sense of being connected to that person. We use the analogy all the time of a bridge and two sides of a river, people can understand that here, or two sides of a tunnel, right? is that when you're on one side and your spouse is on the other, you feel emotionally disconnected.
Right.
Somebody's got to go to the middle of that bridge and invite the other person there.
Right.
And because that place of standing in the same place together
Yep.
is really what matters most.
Right.
And it takes time to get there.
Sure.
And I think it merits saying too, right? I mean, this is presupposing two healthy people in a relationship.
Yes, let's take some time to talk about that.
Because I think that, we can talk about some of these dynamics and say that, somebody's got to come to, well, what if I'm only the ever person that comes on the bridge?
I was just gonna,
and and that's not fair, because then you feel like you're being taken advantage of.
That's good.
You're
it's probably
always
just
the one compromising.
Right, I'm always compromising. And so, it's two committed individuals to that process.
Yeah.
And so out of the gate, you may not be there, right?
Yeah.
And so the other thing that I think we don't talk about is this is when it's really, really powerful, really valuable to have trusted advisors, mentors, people in your life that when you have those detonation moments, you can pause and call and talk to, and even sometimes bring in and mediate a conversation between you and your spouse so that you can get to the root of what you're saying and not be responding to the story that you're telling yourself.
Let's dive deeper in that a little bit. What would we say are some indicators of a person who's not emotionally healthy? Because if someone's not emotionally healthy, then they might be that they're actually not capable of doing the very thing that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so if someone is out there watching and they're asking themselves the question, am I emotionally healthy? What would be some indications that we would say these are some things, some questions you could ask yourself, and then we'll follow that up with how they can get help.
Yeah.
But let's start with this.
I would say, do you leave most, if not all, arguments feeling like you won? You got your way. You made them see your way.
Right.
I made them see how I felt.
If that dynamic is playing out in every other relationship, it's not going to be different when you get married.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think another tell is if your spouse or your partner brings you a concern and it's always somebody else's fault or some other situation. Well, that's because you did this, or that's because this happened to me. I had a bad day at work.
Yep.
If it's always something else, that's a tell that maybe you're not in an emotionally healthy space because you're projecting external factors onto your spouse or your partner.
If you're never the one to own doing wrong and apologize, if you're never that one, that usually means you're not healthy. There's a give and take.
That's a good list.
No matter what you're arguing about or you're trying to compromise on, there's always
just in life in general.
Yep.
Or do you have a hard time remembering the last time you said you were sorry?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you struggle with hearing others' emotions?
Yeah.
If your spouse or whoever it is comes to you and says, I feel, you immediately bristle up and it becomes an argument.
Yeah.
Then I would say you're probably emotionally not safe.
I would add to it if you have a tendency to always bring more emotion to the moment that's warranted. If on a scale of 1 to 10, the issue you're dealing with is a 3, but you're bringing level 10's intensity, I would say we have found, even in our own life, right? That means emotion from something else is bleeding into this.
There's more to talk about. There's more to unpack. Explore that.
That's good.
Yeah, and I think the danger in that specific example, right, is that's a manipulation tactic.
Yeah.
Right. You're responding that way to in essence, press down your spouse and limit their response.
Yeah.
Because if I go nuclear, it's really hard for you to make your point. Yeah. So now I just I eat it, and I'm saying, oh well, I guess I won't take that to him or her again because they're going to blow up.
So somebody watching just checked every box of our list. They're like, that's me, that's me, that's me.
Yep.
We would say schedule an appointment with a therapist.
Yeah.
Right? It is so important.
Yep.
Right? People's emotional health. Right? If they had chest pain, they're going to call their doctor.
Exactly.
Right? And so we're saying, hey, recognize the warning signs of your soul.
Yep.
And I would say reach out to a therapist.
Yeah.
And then I would say also you could reach out to a pastor.
Yeah.
And then sometimes pastors are trained as therapists.
Sure.
We're not. We
Right.
do pastoral counseling.
Right.
But we'll talk with people to sometimes help them understand what they need, but then we connect them
Right.
to a
Right.
therapist. But the idea
Right.
is if you're not emotionally healthy, you're never going to get healthy by yourself.
Right.
You can't fix yourself.
Right.
Right. You
Yeah, I
can't
was going
fix-
to say, take your spouse to your therapy and let the therapist hear from your
Yeah,
spouse.
no, that's fair too. But they're going to they can't just wake up tomorrow and say,
Be
I'm going to be a
different.
better
Right.
person.
Right.
You know,
There's gonna
that
be
doesn't
work.
work for anybody.
Yeah.
You need to start with somewhere. And then I would say maybe if you're not willing to do either of those things you mentioned earlier, Kim, everybody should have at least one person in their life. Maybe they're not a titled mentor,
Right.
but it's someone they respect.
Right.
And you could at least go to that person and
Right.
say, I was watching a conversation at this church.
Right.
They were talking about emotional health. They listed
Yeah.
these things. Do you think that's me?
Right.
And if that person
Yeah.
really loves you, they're going to say, yeah,
Yep.
you that might be something you need to look into.
Yep.
Yeah. No, that's good. Any closing thoughts on how to win an argument?
I think too, if you are trying to find somebody to be emotionally honest with, and it's not your spouse in response to this, that you should then reach out for help as a couple too, not just,
I like it.
because
I like it.
that's
That's
a red
really good.
flag.
That's a good
that,
point.
You're not going to solve that
You can't go on
overnight
this journey by
either.
yourself.
But if
Yeah.
you're like, wow, my emotionally safe person is this person, and it's not your spouse, then there's work to do to make
Right.
that a safe space.
Correct.
And that can, to encourage people, that can be changed. That can be
Right. Yeah.
cultivated and
Yeah.
curated and something, but you have to be emotionally courageous to say we need help.
No, that's good.
You're not, and
That's
your,
really
your
good.
spouse, you have to be able to tell them, I'm realizing that you're not the person and I want you to be. So how are we going to tackle this together? Invite them into the process.
Yep.
All of that takes,
Yeah. No, that's a really
so,
good point.
Yeah.
I would say too, as a final thought, is find something to apologize for.
Find
Yeah.
something. It's not that hard.
Right.
Yes.
So when you
Yeah.
have a
Yep.
conversation, a disagreement, a conflict, whatever you want to call it, you're going to walk away from that and you're going to replay it in your mind. And most of us just default back to, well, I can't believe he said that or
Yeah.
she said that or they did that or what. But if you are honest with yourself and you go, let me replay this and let me find something to apologize for. And then you actually go and apologize for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I realized when I said, or when I told you about what was bothering me, that I used some words that were, absolutes, or I did,
Yep.
and I'm sorry for using that as opposed to just telling you the facts,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
That helps really bring the walls down that are starting
Yeah.
to go up, even with two emotionally healthy people,
Yeah.
right? It starts to it brings the volume down, the heat down.
Yeah.
If someone can own something, and it just starts that walk
It's just
over the
fertile
bridge.
ground for healthy
Yeah.
communication
Yeah.
again.
It's good.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take just a quick break, and then we'll be back with you for our next two topics in just a moment.
It's D, take one.
We've been married for 40 years, but who's counting? And for 40 years, we've been making these adorable little resolutions. And my first resolution this year is to let Frank be a better husband.
This year I resolved not to do these resolutions anymore. I've resolved to no longer feel disappointed.
And I'm okay with the fact that Frank is not the man he used to be. I just mean that going to the gym is hard, and me being okay with the fact that you're never going to go again, ever, makes it easier.
I have a bad back.
Well, that doesn't get you out of everything.
What does that mean?
Nothing at all. I think last year Frank made a resolution to believe that everything in the house fixes itself.
This year my biggest resolution is to make Betty think people actually like her cooking.
Oh, that's funny, because this year I'm resolved to let you do your own cooking.
What?
Yeah, I'm going to be a big enough woman to let you be your own man.
But I'm not my own man.
And I'm resolved to be okay with that.
But I like your cooking.
You do?
Of course I do. Have I ever said I didn't like your cooking?
Yeah, just now.
I said people. I didn't say me.
Well, do you like it? You never told me that.
Then this year I resolved to tell you how much I appreciate your cooking.
Well, look at you. 1 for 3. I love you.
I love you too.
Do you think you could resolve to brush your teeth after you drink the coffee?
Yeah, if you could resolve to stop burning every pot.
Hey, we're back. Again, thanks for spending some time with us. We hope that you're finding this conversation meaningful. Again, what we want to say is if you call City Life Church your home, or even if you don't, and you need someone to talk to about marriage, then we would love to do that with you. Even if we can't help you with your situation, we'll make sure that we connect you to someone who can. So let's talk about money.
Yeah.
Let's talk about money. And because statistics show that marriage is right up there with infidelity, which of leading causes for divorce.
Yep.
And money is.
Yes,
Not
money
marriage.
with infidelity.
Yep.
And although again, we would argue the precursor for all of that is not being prepared for the displacement effect of marriage, but that reveals itself, right, in lots of different ways. And one of it is through money conflict. We try to help couples understand you have got to abandon this idea of the money that I make belongs to me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to embrace an idea of all the money that we have is ours.
Yep.
All of the debt we have is ours.
Yeah.
All of the assets we have are ours.
Yeah.
Right. And so people that come into marriage maybe later in life that have retirement, a house, a car, that's no longer my car, that's our car.
Right.
That's no longer my house, that's our house.
Right.
That's no longer my retirement, that's our retirement.
Yep.
Right. And so you have to go from a singular pronoun to a plural pronoun.
Yeah.
So how have you seen that dynamic in marriage? Again, you guys got married younger.
Sure.
So maybe that wasn't as big of a dynamic, but have you observed that?
Oh, for sure.
In other people.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I mean, I was going to joke and say it's kind of hard to fight about money when you don't have any, but
Yeah.
we struggled through that. So,
that was the benefit of getting married early.
but no, I mean, absolutely, even for us, right? We, who pays the bills, how we prioritize, and I was going to add that to the list of displacement, right?
Yeah.
Just your financial,
good.
perspective is displaced because if I'm a shopper and you're not, you're going to have desires to want to shop, continue to do those things,
Right.
and or your preference for where you shop or how any of that kind of stuff matters. And so we had to come through that. We had to come through, her paying the bills and then me paying the bills. But then it's, what is really the most important piece? Is it our agreement on our finances and what it is, or the person who's paying the bills? And so if you choose to be about the person, then I think you're going to put yourself on a path towards problems.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say, obviously, these are emotional conversations because you're a human, right?
Yeah.
But finances, when you make money talks. I mean, it's all laid out kind of in black and white. So finances for us, we try our best to take the emotion out of financial conversations because it's numbers.
Yeah.
It's numbers. But like you mentioned, who pays the bills, who does whatnot. I feel like with both of us being, completely involved in it makes way for different seasons of life. I can remember when we were young with no babies or one baby, I was able to be much more involved in the day-to-day workings of money. And then as seasons of our marriage have changed, we've gone in and out of the day-to-day. But when we're both in every decision and every conversation about money, that makes that easier through seasons of marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, what we see a lot, so make no mistake, even today, as much as we've matured in our relationship and our marriage, finances is probably the easiest trigger to a destructive conflict for us because it's just so deeply personal. But and we see that with so many other couples too that we talk with, and the big reason is, and it's not for everybody, but in most cases, for a man, it's deeply tied to the sense of ability of being a provider, right? And so whether or not it's I'm the one pushing the button and writing the check or whatever and paying the bill, or I'm the one that's the breadwinner. It's deeply tied to a man's identity as a provider. And for women, it's in most cases deeply tied to their sense of security, right? Knowing that they have a home and reliable transportation and food to put on the table and all of those things. And so it's going to naturally be one of the most volatile points of conflict in a relationship.
Yeah, right. People want to think money's not personal, and what we would say is it's nothing but personal,
right?
Because you're going to feel it, and so we try to talk practically to couples too about not only do you have to have a plural pronoun approach, right? It's nothing's mine, everything is ours, right? And we emphasize too. That's both the good things and the not so good things.
Yeah.
If you bring a lot of debt into the marriage, right, that's part of what marriage is, is this is now our responsibility together, right? And so there's that component. The other component is that we say the budget is the boss.
Right.
Because this is the other dynamic we see in marriage is that one spouse becomes the family treasurer. Right. They hold the purse strings, right? Meaning that now one spouse has to come to the other spouse. Can I do this? It's like a kid going to their parents for an allowance, you know? And what we say is that creates an unhealthy power dynamic in a marriage, regardless of who's holding the purse strings, right? Whether it's the wife or the husband. But if the budget, if you think of the budget as a person, the budget as a permission giver, the budget holds the purse strings. And that you all created the budget together.
Sure.
It's like you elected this person to come be your family treasurer. And now when you're making financial decisions, when you have spent more than what you thought, you made a mistake in setting your budget, you've got to reorder it. It's the two of you together going to that budget, working together to restructure it, and then putting the budget back into place of authority.
That's what I meant when I said earlier, it's numbers, it's black and white. It's a third, it's a third person or it's a spreadsheet. It's Cameron is not the enemy. Because the budget won't allow for something.
How have you seen in working with couples, how have they had a hard time pivoting to that? What are some things, what are some barriers that you've noticed of it's hard for couples to move towards that because
I would say back to the first topic we talked about, displacement. You brought up like hobbies, whether it's golf or cars or, you knew that this is what I did. It's discretionary
stuff that's the conflict source, isn't it?
You knew I played golf every Saturday. Well, I didn't know how much it cost every Saturday. But also we don't have that kind of money now that we're together. And so
I also think inequity in income, when one spouse makes significantly more than the other, and then they use that as a leverage point in any way, that's a huge red flag. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're not
that's a debtor relationship.
Or if one person is a stay-at-home parent and don't generate income, then you really have a dynamic of I make this money, I get to decide how the money's spent, which is also really unhealthy.
That's terrible. I was a stay-at-home mom for years and never, ever, like I felt full access to all our money. My name's on every account.
100%.
I felt like his money was I've never even said his money. It feels weird saying it, but our money.
I've always said it's your money.
It all belongs to me anyways. But you know what I mean? It's
here, honey, this is what I brought.
Because we're a unit, you know what I mean?
Right,
so
100%.
And then there were times where
100%.
I was making, when he first made the leap into vocational ministry, I was making more than him at that time. So it didn't matter how that plays out. That this is our family's money.
The plural pronoun is the key.
It's huge. And if couples can't get there, all the rest honestly is not going to line up.
I would agree with that. We were in, similar situation when we first got married. I worked full time. My earning potential was amazing. And then we made the decision for me to work part-time and homeschool. And I've never felt like, that was just something that we came to. When you make family decisions, like the decisions that we made for me to work less and homeschool, those were family decisions. So then that's easy for your money then to be a unit or family money.
You think
Because-
family, I would say values, right? Those are values-based
Right,
decisions. Like
right.
this is what our family's
Yeah.
going to do. So that money or lack of
Right.
represents a value that you're both equally committed to.
Correct.
And then you're both on board with that. But
Yep.
I do think that there are times where couples just can't even get to the hour. The hour
Well, so
is
yeah,
hard.
I was going to say, I think this is going to step on some toes, right? But really, it's an unwillingness to not, to not be selfish.
Yeah.
It's an inability to lay down selfishness,
Yeah.
and that's a hard concept because in some respects, that selfishness is not, it's not black and white, right? I'm just a selfish person, and so therefore, you're going to feel the byproduct of my selfishness. It really can be, built on several different things, right? If I've had a deep personal trauma or history of events, I'm a product of a rough environment, that could be totally driving the selfish behavior. And so for somebody to look at you and go, well, you're just selfish.
Yeah.
That's not what we're saying.
Yeah.
But if you can't come to the place to say that this is ours,
Sure.
right? Ultimately, what you're saying is, I'm more important than us.
Yeah.
And that's selfishness.
No, sure.
And,
sure.
and that goes back to displacement. It goes back to fighting fair. All those things, like you're not going to get the other two topics we've talked about because your priority is above the collective.
Yeah.
So let me throw this in as I'm sitting here talking, right? We're saying people need to move from this is my money to this is our money.
Yeah.
So just as we were talking, I'm thinking there's really a third pivot that we would say they have to make. It's his money.
Totally.
I mean, it belongs to God.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Right? I mean, that's really
You know what made me think about that is-
they gotta, and if you start with it's his money.
Yep.
If I come into my marriage and I don't even have a my money concept.
Right.
If I've come into marriage with everything that I have belongs to the Lord.
Yeah.
And then the other person comes in, then it's a lot easier to pivot to it's ours to steward together.
Right.
Because all of it, what you have belongs to him and what I have belongs to him.
Right.
That's really the pivot, right?
No,
I'm having my own revelation
made
as
me
we sit
think
here
of
having
that
this conversation.
because
Somebody write this down. Right?
I was just thinking that because I was just talking to somebody who they have been married a long time and they both make good incomes, but she tithes and he doesn't. And so I thought that was so interesting that after all these years, I thought that was such a, it made me, I don't know their story. I don't know the details of that.
But that's born out of a my money, your money.
And I think it's a high, I'm not even sure that's open, it's more of a hiding. Like
just go ahead and say their name.
I call them out. I want
Your name's going to scroll on the screen
give to
right
God,
now.
but I really don't want my husband to know because he's not there yet.
Right.
I'm going to pretend. I'm believing God to get him there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like this big negative about the husband, but I thought that's a big red flag for your marriage. The fact that you could hide it, the fact that you would consider hiding it, the fact that you're not, so it's all interconnected.
But if you're
It's
given
all
the city
interconnected.
life, what we would
We'll
say is
take it.
it's okay to keep hiding it for now.
It's okay.
It's terrible. It's terrible. No, right? But that's
Edit that out. No,
But that's really the shift. Is you've got to have this mindset and mentality. Nothing you have belongs to
Nothing.
you
Right.
materially. I mean, within we would say that about everything. But for this conversation about money, we're saying you're stewarding something that belongs to God.
Yeah, no, and the pitfall there though, right, is if I look at you and go, well, it's not our money anyway, like that. I mean, you just stepped on a landmine, and that's not going to go well, right? That's not. Yeah. There's phases.
That
there's a
can't be your
progression.
reason for why you get to do what you want to do.
Right. It's not our money anyway.
Right.
God told me.
Yeah.
That's not going. That's not going to work out.
Yeah.
But that's a progression, right? And so really you have to understand why. Again, it's being introspective and looking at yourself and going, why am I possessive over this?
Yeah.
What do I fear, or what do I think is going to happen if I go from a mine to a us to a we? What's the worst thing that's going to happen?
Yeah. I want to share something that has made financial dilemmas, decisions, whatever, easier for us is many years ago, we sat down together and created a marriage mission statement, if that's what you want to call it, but decided together, what are our goals? Like what's most important? Our marriage is most, God is most important, our marriage is most important. Being present in our kids' lives is most important. And so every single decision that we have to make in our marriage points back to this mission and these goals that we've created together. And so whether that means, does Cameron take a different job? That would mean a lot more money for us, but it would mean he was traveling.
Yeah.
Do we have a car payment? Do we, those types of decisions, do they point back to what we've decided together is our family mission and goals?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's really good.
That's good. That's really good.
It gives you common ground to work from, which is always helpful as a starting point.
All right, let's pivot to our last one.
Okay.
You can't have a conversation about marriage and not have a conversation about sex.
That's right.
Or we would say you shouldn't have a conversation about
Why
marriage,
would you?
right? and not have a conversation about sex.
all the fun.
And so if people are watching going, I thought this was going to be about falling in love, right?
Oh.
And what we would say is you're never going to fall in love if you don't understand the principle of prioritization, if you don't understand the principle of emotional intimacy, if you don't understand this idea of nothing is mine, everything is ours, under the banner, everything is his. If you're not understanding these concepts, then you're never going to experience the depth of love that you've dreamt, right? We say that 1 Corinthians 13, we love that chapter. That's the chapter of the Bible that speaks to love as a virtue. And you can't have love without virtue. But that's not the only chapter in the Bible. In fact, there's a whole book in the Old Testament, not just a chapter, that talks about passion. And that's the Song of Solomon. And so if God gives a group of verses to virtue, but he gives a whole book to passion, he's saying, hey, don't this one doesn't replace this one, right? We need both together. And so let's talk a little bit about sexual passion, because we believe that a healthy marriage should experience a capacity for pleasure that God created. Right? We joke with couples, it's not as though that when Adam and Eve had sex for the first time, God was like, oh dear. Oh dear. I didn't know that they were going to be able to do that, right?
Exactly.
He gave us the capacity to experience to experience passion. And so if there's one word that we could pick that is the determining factor of whether or not your sex life is going to be amazing. It's the word exclusivity. And then it's the violation of exclusivity that competes with the level of sexual fulfillment that you should be experiencing. And so when I say exclusivity, I would say that's why we tell married couples that pornography is broken and bad, is because it violates the principle of exclusivity that God has set aside in marriage, right? It's why we say self-gratification, or what's commonly referred to as masturbation, we say is unhealthy, because it violates the biblical principle of exclusivity. We would say not having control of your thought life, right? And constantly fantasizing sexually about other people other than your spouse is unhealthy, because it violates the biblical principle, of exclusivity. So, and the biblical principle of exclusivity, I would argue, is God setting us up for understanding how he intended our brain to work, because he created sexuality. And the reason why sex feels so great is that your brain backs up with a dump truck full of endorphins and dumps all that into your bloodstream by God's design. We believe in creationism, not evolution, as a scientific concept. So we haven't evolved into this place, of sexual fulfillment. That was in the Garden of Eden from the beginning. And so God's saying, hey, if you don't practice exclusivity, your partner is competing in your brain with all of these other experiences. And so you're not experiencing the kind of fulfillment that you could have. The lie of the world is that you need variety to be fulfilled.
Right.
God says, no,
Yeah.
no. I made that brain.
Right.
I know how that brain works, and I
Right.
know how that brain is going to best function.
Yep.
I know how your body biologically is going to best function.
Right.
You need exclusivity
Right.
in order to experience sexual fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
So talk to me about how you've observed that in people's lives, even in your own journey, and why that's so critical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, for me, as you were talking, I go back to, the biblical design of oneness. And if man and woman are to come together and to become one, the only way that it can be done is through exclusivity and this deep trust and connection with each other. And so if you're, you can be the best communicator, you can be the most stable, dependable partner for your spouse, but if you're not exclusive to them, you're introducing again things that are eroding away at the oneness of your marriage.
Yeah.
And so I bought the lie, hook, line, and sinker growing up that everything had to be about variety and pleasure and all that stuff and it coming out of that, like I tell guys all the time that when I got married and I looked ahead and I thought what would a good sex life look like in my 40s or whatever, I had a vastly different picture of what I thought that was going to be, and it was really defined by what the world said it was going to look like, right? Or even before I got married. But now being here, now having put in the work and constantly pursuing that oneness with Jennifer, and now we're in this place where we really are like connected to each other in every way possible. I would look back and go, that's dumb.
Yeah.
That is not it. And man, you have no idea, right?
Yeah.
What's waiting for you on the other side of the hard work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. Right. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I think about intimacy sexually, I keep coming back to it's safety. It's never going to be beautiful. It's never going to be what God designed it to be without safety.
Yeah.
And there's just no way to sift through the noises and the images without exclusivity and find safety. I tell people, I used to use the analogy of a credit card machine, but nobody knows what credit card machines are now. The old ones
Everything's tap
where
and pay.
you put the paper down and you put, the carbon paper with the credit card and you run it. I used to say it's like running multiple credit card numbers on the same carbon copy and then handing it to your spouse and saying, go spend that. I'm like, I can't. It's all messed up.
Yeah.
But there's no way without exclusivity to have safety. And like you said, I mean, God has designed it to be amazing and beautiful and pleasurable.
Yeah.
And that is impossible without safety.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that protecting that part of your brain, protecting obviously God gave us the capacity to be aroused and to be just a steward of that, understand that and own that. Mm-hmm. That doesn't make you a broken person. It makes you a healthy person.
Right.
But understanding that. So I think, we talk about pornography often, but it's your thought life. Mm-hmm. It's what you read for women, I think too, romance novels. Yeah. I think it's, even like I often hear people commenting on someone of the opposite sex who's very attractive. Right. Like even letting yourself go there, like who's your favorite actor and why? Like, why would you even think that? Because your spouse should be the only person in that bucket ever and always. Yep. And so really understanding that you're creating by creating an exclusive bucket and everything that means, and not letting yourself cross that line of anything that brings arousal. So the definition of that's going to be wide and broad depending on who you are. And that's between you and God. Right. But to me, that should be the definition. Then you all of a sudden create this incredibly safe, exclusive space. Yep. And then what can happen in that space is beautiful and God ordained and amazing. Yeah. But it's not what the world tells us is sex. It's not.
Let me give, there's 3 rules that because this is part of, I think, what you're talking about too, is, and you and Jennifer, about being safe. We have 3 rules that we give young married couples, right? And so those 3 rules are sex should never cause pain. It shouldn't hurt. We say it shouldn't hurt. It shouldn't demean or diminish, and it shouldn't violate your conscience. Those are our 3 boundaries, right?
But other than that,
But other than that, have fun.
go for it.
We say your bodies should be a playground of pleasure for one another. And that's what we have always approached in our own life, and then that's what we tell couples, whether they're getting married later in life or if they're young, right? And get married right out of high school. Right? Then we're saying this is you can have a dream for a sex life that is filled with pleasure that is beyond description.
Right.
And if you want to have that, then you've got to champion exclusivity. And then you just have to have these boundaries. The third boundary of it can't violate your conscience, we tell people you might have some sexual practices that violate your conscience because someone told you that they were wrong.
Right.
And so you might find that person was wrong
Right.
in telling you that, and that it's not wrong for you.
Right.
And so we say, be open to the third one being renegotiated as a couple.
Right.
As long as it doesn't violate the first 2. It can never cause pain, and it can never diminish.
Right.
But be open. Be open to the possibility that you might find that but if you still feel that it violates your conscience, then you defer to your spouse.
Yeah.
But the third one, sometimes we say to couples, you might have to figure that out a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I would say communicate often about it.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's hard for couples to talk about sex, to talk about intimacy with each other, because it's so personal and so vulnerable.
Yeah.
You
But
should have a
talk often.
We tell couples, and we've practiced in our marriage, you should have a sex conversation just like you have a money conversation, just like you have a calendar. It sounds crazy, but you manage your calendar. You don't have this big sit down, well, we got to sit down and we got to talk about, I mean, there are times where you sit down and talk about the calendar, or you talk about the budget for the year, but there's also this ongoing dialogue in just your day-to-day life, that this is part of how we're doing life together.
Right.
And there should be an ease.
Yeah.
But most people don't have that because they haven't, even if their parents had that conversation, it wasn't in front of them.
Right.
So
And shouldn't have been.
And it shouldn't have been.
Right.
So I'm saying that's something that you have to understand and then begin to practice and build a comfort level with, because you're in a healthy family, you're not going to have seen that modeled.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Our kids didn't see that modeled, even though that was happening. So you have to, that's why we like to state it to young couples, so they know that, hey, you've never seen this happening, but this has been happening, and you've seen the fruit of the fact that it's happened.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said for that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you think, just as we're wrapping up, what do you think is one of the big reasons why especially Christian couples have a hard time with one, talking about this, but also are oftentimes the couples that should be having the best sex don't?
Yeah.
What are some sort of hang-ups there, do you think?
Well, I think we've just gotten it wrong for so long as a church.
The church.
The church, not
sure.
the church, right? And so the problem is this is deeply personal. This is deeply vulnerable, and for it to be the best, it has to be both of those, right? Like you're not going to have a great sex life if it's not personal and you're not vulnerable, right? And so I'm bringing to bear everything that is me, and what are you going to do with it? You're going to knock it out of my hand, and so you've got to be able to talk about it. You've got to be able to wrestle through the difficulties of getting it wrong and having to come back, and you may take one step forward and take 2 steps back, and that's okay. Yeah. Right. And then having the right people talking about it and removing some of the taboo. Right, it's
so
not
good.
Taboo.
I think that's the big one there.
It's by design. Yeah, and
people lump all pleasure as the lust of the flesh.
Right.
Well, there's a difference between lust and pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that
That's good, Cam.
It's gotten wrong a lot because when you hear the word intimacy, you automatically think sex. And there's so many other, categories of intimacy, and, couples who believe that, intimacy is this and none of the rest of this matters. This being spiritual intimacy, emotional intimacy, then so everything is connected. And so it can't be treated like just our sex life. Yeah.
No, it's interesting you say that, right? Because sexual intimacy is a thing, right? You should feel closer to each other by having a healthy sex life. But we like to talk with people about chasing sexual pleasure, because we would say if you're giving yourself permission for pleasure, you're going to find intimacy, right? If your motivation, right, is proper.
Right.
I'm not just in it for myself.
Right.
I'm in it for both of us. And I think that's the biggest hang up is that Christians tend to think of physical pleasure as not being something that's God honoring. Right. And we know that's just not the case.
Well, the other thing, as you were talking, it reminded me, like, we treat it as if it is its own thing.
Yeah.
Like I've got my sex box or my whatever, my thing that this is where, and it's not connected to everything.
People are going to leave here going, what's a sex box?
Right, yeah. How do we get one of those? Stay tuned. We're going to show you.
Somebody's Googling that right now.
Right, yeah. It's compartmentalized away from everything else, right?
Yeah. No, that's really
it's
good,
really
Cam.
hard for a man and a woman to enter into a place of intimacy when you're battling all the other things that are connected to it. And that's simple stuff like the dishes and the what. I can't expect, I can't make her go do 45 minutes of dishes. And I'm laying in the bed waiting, and she comes in, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" And she's going, "I'm tired. I've just done 45 minutes of dishes." While you were just laying here, no, that's got to be more practical than that.
No, for sure.
I would say the flip side of that, and not to gender categorize, but the flip side of that is we believe that you have a sex box with your spouse and nothing else is bleeding into that. But if you are watching pornography, if you are fantasizing, that you can't section those out. They bleed into your sex box. And you carry it. And so that stops you from having true pleasure and intimacy with your spouse.
Yeah, for sure.
One last point, and then a resource to recommend, and then we'll wrap up. Let me do the resource first. The book by Doug Weiss, Sex, Men, and God.
Yeah.
It is the best book I've ever read that explains brain chemistry. And I think the brain chemistry translates to women, even though it's a book written for men.
That's an amazing book.
Yeah. And so I would say if you're married, both of you, Vanessa and I both, somebody gave that book to us years ago, and we both read it. It's remarkable. Sex, Men, and God by Doug Weiss. And then the clarifier I want to make when we talk about masturbation, self-gratification, not being recommended. The caveat to that, which is what we also tell young couples, is for military, if you're deployed, you're gone from your spouse for 6 months, a year, then what we would say is there's some exceptions, and there might be a biological need that you have, but you and your spouse should agree on that ahead of time. And you should have your boundaries for how you're going to do that. And it should not involve pornography or fantasies about other people. You have a fantasy for your spouse. Find some creative ways that your spouse can be a participant, right, in that moment. And so we say that, people that travel with their business and they're gone for months at a time. We say, hey, I get it, right? That's okay, but you should be agreeing together on what that's like. If you're away for a golf trip or a connect with the girls for the weekend, you can wait until you get home, right? And if you're on a missions trip for 7 days, you can wait until you. And if you can't wait, then you probably
that's another fifth Saturday.
That's another fifth Saturday conversation for another time.
Referral.
So thank you all
Yeah.
for being
this is
a
our
part
favorite.
of this.
We love marriage.
Yeah, you
Thank
do.
you, guys.
And you all are great
Yes.
champions of marriage in this church and in the community.
Yeah.
And so, and good friends and good friends to us. And so City Life Church, we're so glad that you were a part of another Fifth Saturday series. And so if you've got questions about what we talked about, we're just a phone call away. See you next week.